Hey everyone, I'm Marcus Grimm. Now, if you're running a business with lots of moving parts, manufacturing, logistics, healthcare, mining, airports, all of them, you've probably looked at simulation, right? Maybe you've even built a model. But once that model's up and running, well, what happens next? Is it just a one-time tool to answer a single question? Or can it be something bigger? Something that actually changes how you lead, how you plan, how your whole team makes decisions? Well, today I'm sitting down with Jon Santavy, his partner at SimWell, to talk about what really changes when simulation becomes part of the way you operate, and it's not just a project, but a true decision asset. Hey, Jon, how are we doing today? Happy Friday, my friend.
Fantastic. Thank you, Marcus. You as well.
Let's start with this big shift. Once a company has a working simulation model, that's great, but what actually changes?
What really changes is how you make decisions. You stop relying on static dashboards and spreadsheets and just doing things the way they've always been done. You stop guessing based on averages, average demand, average lead time, average failure rate, because nobody actually operates on an average day. And you start asking, what if we tried this? But instead of guessing, you run it through the model first. You simulate before you commit. You're not working off assumptions anymore. You're working off how the system behaves. Confidence doesn't come from a polished deck anymore. It comes from watching your system react under pressure safely before anything goes live. And here's the thing, the model itself is not the only win. The win isn't how you use it. It gives you space to stress test ideas, get teams aligned, and make optimal calls. It's not about finding the perfect answer. It's about asking sharper questions and getting to better answers faster, all while managing risk.
Some teams treat simulation as a one-and-done project. What do they miss when they do that?
They miss the real value. A good simulation model isn't something you build once and forget about. It's a reusable asset. Once you've got it, you can rerun it with updated inputs, new constraints, evolving assumptions, whatever's changed in the business or whatever's changed in the macro environment. I know it's hard to imagine, but in the AM, you could be running scenarios with tariffs, and by the PM, you're running scenarios without tariffs. You don't use it once and shelve it. You keep coming back to it every time you're facing a new question or a big decision. Supplier mix changes, run the model. You're launching a new product, run the model. You're thinking about adding capacity, cutting shifts, rebalancing inventory, run the model. It becomes your go-to space for thinking through change before committing resources. It reminds me of the war table in Game of Thrones. When something shifted, a new threat, new alliance, new territory, they simulated it. They came back to the map or back to that table. They moved the pieces. They talked through the consequences. That's what simulation gives you. It's your strategy table. The more dynamic your environment, the more often you should be standing around it, testing moves before you make them.
Well, let's get practical. How does simulation even change what executive teams do?
Simulation shortens the decision cycle. What once took weeks of meetings and opinions now takes a few runs and one focused conversation. I'm not saying it's an easy button. It's an intense engineering effort. And it's worth it because it's the only way to capture a complex system like a warehouse, a mine, or a supply chain, test changes, and compare results. Second, it creates alignment. The model becomes shared truth, not a person's take or a department's agenda. Everyone sees the same system respond to the same change. And they don't just see it in charts or numbers, they see it in their own operation. They watch congestion form in scenario A but not B. They see growth demands met by upgrading machines instead of a full capex. They see dock schedules shift and yards flow better or back up depending on the policy. Third, it shifts the question from can we hit X to what policies drive that result. It elevates the conversation from static targets to operational behavior.
Whenever we talk about simulation, we inevitably talk about dashboards and BI tools, and that's part of what we're doing with simulation. But what's simulation giving executives that those tools can't?
Yeah, great question. Dashboards are great for tracking performance, but they don't tell the full story when you're planning a major change. Let's say you're thinking about shifting regional demand to a single distribution center. BI will tell you how each DC performed last year. Simulation shows you what happens when all the volume hits one site, how it affects inbound scheduling, cross-dock timing, labor requirements, outbound SLAs, even yard congestion. It's not just about performance snapshots, it's about seeing the ripple effects before they hit your operations. That's the difference.
Is simulation something that the executive team uses directly, or is it more just for business analysts?
Executives should absolutely use it. It helps explore the decision space to find optimal solutions to the problems they're trying to solve. So executives should use it, but at the right level. You're not tuning variables. You're not building the model. You're asking questions. You're probing the system. You're making the mistakes here where it gets reset with the click of a button, instead of in the real world where it hits the P&L, or worse, the news cycle. You ask the questions, and then you review the results together and decide how to move. Again, it's like that war table in Game of Thrones. Executives don't push the blocks around for fun. They do it to understand the strategy, the risk, and what comes next. The model lets you do that without guessing.
Where should simulation fit in a company's broader planning process?
Simulation often starts in strategy, but I believe it fits right in the middle between strategy and execution. If you're thinking about shutting down a facility, overhauling shift logic, or rolling out a new fulfillment strategy, you need a way to see the impact before it hits operations. You're talking about decisions that affect people, systems, and customers, the whole operation. And those moves come with risk. Simulation gives you a space to test those scenarios safely, to see how the system reacts under pressure, to spot the ripple effects that don't show up in a spreadsheet. It's not about getting it perfect the first time, it's about being prepared before you make the call. That's what this tool is built for.
Jon, today we've been talking primarily to people that already have a model. So if your team already has a model or is close to having one ready, what's your advice?
Use it regularly. Make it part of how you plan. Don't treat simulation like a one-off project. Don't wait for a crisis. Run it before ops reviews. Use it in planning meetings. Train your team to think in scenarios. What if demand jumps 20%? What if lead times double? What if we need more output with the same headcount? If you don't ask in the model, you're asking in real life and paying to find out. That's where you test. A cyber attack hitting your supply chain, terrorists vanishing and returning in hours, a customer shifting their footprint on short notice, wildfires cutting off key routes, a conveyor failing during peak, staffing gaps disrupting hospital flow, ore quality dipping mid-quarter, equipment failures grounding flights. These aren't questions to answer in real time. The model lets you work through them early, when the cost is still zero.
Folks, simulation isn't just about building the model, it's about building a habit, testing ideas before you commit, stress testing policies before they break, and creating a shared environment where better decisions can happen faster. If your team already has a model or you're close, well, it's not the end of the project. It's the beginning of how you plan under pressure, align across silos, and lead with clarity. Over on the SimWell website, you'll find a resource. It's called From Project to Process, how to take simulation from something that answers one question to a true core process of your business operations. Jon, thanks for walking us through it today. And for everyone watching, if you're facing a big decision and you'd rather test it before paying for the outcome, well, this is your moment to bring on simulation. Learn more at simwell.io.